going to tell you something that most people are not ready to hear. I went to heaven. And while I was there, Jesus revealed to me a divine secret. A secret about music that will completely change the way you hear every single song for the rest of your life. This isn't a theory. This isn't something I read in a book. This is something I experienced firsthand. And by the end of this video, you will never think about music the same way again. My name is Emperor, and if you're new here, welcome. This channel is dedicated to sharing the spiritual insights and heavenly encounters that have transformed my life. And I pray they do the same for you. Today, I want to take you on a journey with me. A journey that started with a question I didn't even know I was asking, and ended with an answer so profound, so life-altering, that I felt an absolute responsibility to share it with the world. So settle in, because what I'm about to share with you is not just a story. It is a revelation. Let me ask you something. When you hear your favorite song come on, what do you feel? Maybe you feel happy. Maybe it takes you back to a memory. Maybe it gives you chills or brings tears to your eyes. We've all had that experience. That moment where a song hits you so deeply, so personally, that it feels like it was written just for you. But here's the question. Most of us never stop to ask, why? Why does music affect us that deeply? Why can a melody do something that even the most carefully chosen words sometimes cannot? Why does music reach places inside of us that nothing else can touch? For most of my life, I didn't have an answer to that. Like most people, I grew up seeing music as entertainment. It was background noise for a road trip, a playlist to get through a workout, a way to set a mood at a party. I loved music, don't get me wrong, but I loved it the way most people love it, casually, superficially, without ever truly understanding what it was. Growing up, music was everywhere in my life. I had my favorite artists, my favorite genres, the songs that defined different seasons of my life. But even with all of that, I was only ever engaging with music on a surface level. I was enjoying the packaging without ever understanding what was inside. And I think that's where a lot of us are. We consume music every single day. Billions of streams, millions of songs, and yet we have completely underestimated its power. We've reduced something sacred to mere entertainment. We've taken one of the most powerful spiritual forces in the universe and turned it into background noise. I was guilty of it too, and I didn't even know what I was missing until the day everything changed. I had always been a curious person, especially when it came to spiritual things. Questions about eternity, about God, about what lies beyond this life. These were questions that had followed me for years. I prayed, I sought, I searched. And then one day, in a way I still find difficult to fully put into words, I found myself on a journey to heaven. The moment it began, I felt something I had never felt before in my entire life. A peace so complete, so total, that every worry, every fear, every weight I had ever carried simply dissolved. It wasn't just calm. It was the absence of everything that had ever troubled me. A stillness so deep, it felt like the truest version of rest. And then I noticed the music. It was everywhere. It wasn't coming from one direction. It was all around me, woven into the atmosphere itself, like the air was made of sound. But it wasn't like any music I had ever heard on earth. It had no beginning and no end that I could identify. It didn't follow a beat the way we think of beats. It was layered, endlessly, impossibly layered. Harmonies building upon harmonies, voices and tones that intertwined impossible and yet completely natural. And it moved me, not just emotionally, physically. I could feel it vibrating through every cell of my body. I could feel it in my chest, in my bones, in my soul. It was as if the music wasn't just something I was hearing. It was something I was becoming part of. As I moved deeper into this heavenly landscape, I was overwhelmed by what surrounded me. Rolling hills that shimmered gold and green under a light that wasn't sunlight as I know it. It was warmer, softer, somehow more alive. Trees that looked as though they were made of light, their leaves catching and reflecting a brilliance that had no single source. The fragrance in the air was unlike anything on earth, sweet and clean, and somehow deeply familiar, like a smell you've been trying to remember your whole life. Every step I took felt intentional, like I was being led, like this journey had a destination, and that destination was drawing me forward with a gentle but undeniable pull. I felt wonder, I felt awe, and then I felt something else, anticipation, a deep, rising sense that I was approaching something or someone that would change me forever. And then I saw him. Jesus was standing there, and the moment I saw him, every question I had ever had about life, about meaning, about purpose, all of it quieted. Not because the questions were answered, but because in his presence, they no longer felt urgent. There was something about being near him that made you feel completely known, completely seen, and completely loved all at once. He smiled at me, a warm, unhurried smile, and he took my hand. In that instant, I felt a surge of something I can only describe as pure love, moving through me like a current. It wasn't just an emotion, it was a force. And then he spoke. His voice was calm and gentle, yet it carried a weight that resonated far deeper than sound. He said, "The divine secret about music is that it is a spiritual language, one that speaks directly to the soul." He explained it to me slowly, carefully, like a teacher who wants to make sure the student truly understands. He said that music was not invented by humanity. Music was created by God, and it exists first and foremost in the spiritual realm. What we experience on earth, our songs, our melodies, our rhythms, these are echoes of something that was already playing in heaven before the world began. He told me that music has the unique ability to bypass the mind and go straight to the spirit. Words can be misunderstood. Logic can be argued with. But music reaches the part of you that no debate can touch. It speaks the language of the soul, and the soul always understands it. He told me that when people use music to worship, to heal, to comfort, to connect, they are participating in something far more ancient and far more powerful than they realize. They are using a divine tool, a bridge between the human and the holy, a frequency that, when aligned with love and truth, can literally transform the atmosphere of a room, the condition of a heart, the trajectory of a life. And then he looked at me with those eyes that held the entire universe in them, and he said, "This is what music is for, not just to be enjoyed, but to be used, to heal, to connect, to bring heaven to earth." I stood there, completely undone. Because in that moment, every time music had ever moved me, every time a song had lifted me out of darkness or brought me to tears or filled me with a joy I couldn't explain, it all made sense. It had never been accidental. It had always been divine. When I returned from that encounter, I was not the same person who had left. I listen to music differently now. I worship differently now. I understand understand that when I put on a song that fills me with peace, or a hymn that brings me to my knees, I am not just being entertained. I am touching something eternal. I am tapping into a language that God Himself created to communicate with the deepest part of who we are. The divine secret that Jesus shared with me is this: music is not just sound. It is a spiritual force. It has the power to heal wounds that words cannot reach, to build bridges between people that logic cannot construct, and to connect us with God in ways that no other medium can replicate. This is the gift of music, and once you understand it, truly understand it, you will never waste it again. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced the spiritual power of music? Has a song ever reached you in a way that felt like more than coincidence? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if this video spoke to you, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. I share these encounters and spiritual insights regularly, and there is so much more I have yet to reveal. Thank you for watching. God bless you, and I'll see you in the next one.